Check, check. 3, 2, 1. Let's try again. Jeremy Warner, Joey Wagner, live in Evanston at Ryan Field, where Illinois football wrapped up its regular season, the best regular season for Illinois football since 2007, with 5 Big Ten wins, a winning Big Ten season, 8 wins overall. Of course, Illinois with a 41-3 rout, Sidney Brown with 2 defensive touchdowns, Devin Witherspoon, 2 interceptions, Reggie Love a career day with 85 rushing yards. We'll get into all of that. But Joey, it's part bittersweet because you end the season with a trophy. You've crushed Northwestern and Pat Fitzgerald the last 2 years. Two programs have really gone separate ways since Brett Bielema was hired. 88-17 advantage for Illinois the last 2 years. Yet Purdue at home or on the road at Indiana defeats Purdue beats Indiana, and wins the Big Ten West championship. What Illinois thought coming into this month it would accomplish. So there's a bittersweet end of the season, but you do end it with a little bit of an uptick, beating your rival, crushing your rival, and solidifying yourself to playing in one of the Big Ten's best bowls.
Yeah, it's one of those. We've talked about it all season. If at the beginning of the year we would have said, hey, this team's going to go 8-4, people would have said we're wrong, and we probably would have felt maybe a little bit of that, and they would have taken it. But as we talked about, that month of October changed a lot with this season. But I don't think it changed. I mean, this disappointment, like you lost 4 one-score games that kept you out of Indianapolis and probably kept you out of a New Year's Bowl. And now you've still got to come to terms with the fact this team was 8-4. This team probably, I don't know if overachieved is the right word as we see this team, but they took a big step forward. I was glad Brett Bielema today but said, hey, we needed to make a bowl game in my second year to keep taking a step forward. And this was a step forward for the program. And it was a really big one. I think you've got a lot of good pitchers on the recruiting trail. But yeah, the other part of it is it's hard not to look and say Indiana, Purdue, Michigan State, Michigan. One of those goes Illinois' way, and they're planning to go to Indianapolis too, and absolutely are, right? So you see the things, but it's bittersweet. I don't really know which way to land on it.
Yeah, you start thinking, man, ranking the losses of how painful they were in retrospect, and I still think Indiana's an early season game. Some of those get a little crazy. Michigan State with the way you beat yourself, I thought was really a disappointing one. Michigan, the way that you did what you had to do for the most part, and some of the stuff out of your control. Purdue, because it meant so much. It meant more than all of them. So you could have that debate, but certainly this season will be remembered a little bit about what if they had done this and got to the Big Ten West championship and got a rematch with Michigan, because Illinois gave Michigan a way better fight than Ohio State did. Think of that. And think about what that means for the program. But as you said, Joey, these are all one-score losses, right? This is where Illinois is, where they are going to compete in every game that they play, and really during the Brett Bielema era, except for Wisconsin and Virginia, right? And have a chance to win. It's going to depend on whether you play a clean game, whether you're getting the right call from the referee, or whether you're healthy. Health really impacted them, I think, especially at cornerback late here in the season. But still, as you look at it as a whole, it's a huge step forward for the program. And even the players are saying, yeah, there's a little bit bittersweet, but it showed that if this is a disappointment, being 8-4, 5-4 in the Big Ten, going to either Nashville or Florida, most likely, that's a huge sign of, the new standard Brett Bielema has set. I don't know if next season will be as good or the season after that, but I do know Illinois football should be fighting for bowl games, and whether the divisional setup is there for the long term or what it'll look like, Illinois football will be a good football program, a good football team moving forward.
Yeah, I think Alex Palczewski summed it up well, where he said, this is the standard. And I think if you, I don't want to take that out of context. Like, the standard isn't to go 8-4. Like, the standard of work, like, that's what he talked about. Like, these young guys have seen the work that we put in, the work that it takes, what goes into being 8-4. Like, that's the standard, and the rest is a byproduct of that. And he's happy he said that. And I asked him, I said, Nicky Allegretti was a big part to you. And you see, there was a point, Jeremy, in 2020 and even early last season, that streak, who's going to pass down anything? What should be passed down in this program? And you're just starting to see, this was a big rebuild. And it happened, I don't want to say the rebuild is over complete. It's not, but the steps happened quickly. But I don't think that should underscore how big of an overtaking this program was when Brett Bielema took the job. from recruiting to roster to just expectation within the building, like all of that needed addressed, and there's still work. Obviously, we see that with depth. You see that with these close losses, but there's a lot to pass down now, and there's something tangible about what they've done that still you still have to acknowledge. Okay, well they didn't go to Indianapolis, and it was there. Like all that is mixed in, but I think you look at 8-4. Illinois football is 8-4. I can't even believe
They were picked to finish sixth. They were picked to finish sixth, not go to a bowl game before the season. So they have raised the expectation for Illinois football surely this year. We're going to start macro, obviously, go micro into this game, and then probably go macro a little bit, looking ahead to the offseason here. And of course, on our live YouTube stream, send in your questions, guys. We'll answer some of those. Send in your comments. We'll talk about some of those as it goes along here. But just think about, Joey, Illinois is starting to play like what Northwestern was, right, during the last decade. I'm thinking of since that 2014 game and until last year, think about how Illinois kept ending seasons, right? Like 2016 or 2019, they have a chance to kill a bad Northwestern team. They're 6-5, go to a better bowl game, and they get run by Andrew Marty, like their third, fourth string quarterback, and just get demolished in that game. 2020, you come up here, get demolished as Northwestern gets a Big Ten West title, and probably 2018, we're talking to Nick Allegretti in his last Illinois game, guy who gave everything and was such a good player, about being 4-8. And think of the second seasons Illinois has had under coaches here recently. Lovie Smith was 2-10. Tim Beckman was 4-8 in his second year. Ron Zook was 2-10. Now you saw some glimpses of progress in year two under with so many close losses, but that's the difference. Is Lovey did lose some talent. Somebody on the Illinois staff said that today. Now they have to overcome some poor recruiting classes towards the end of Lovey Smith's tenure, but this staff got the most out of him, and that's so important to have a good first couple years of progress, Joey, is to sell it in recruiting, and that's what they're going to do over the next month. We'll get into that, but that's why it's so important to have a good start to the Brett Bielema era. And I don't know if anybody thought after 2 years Brett Bielema would have a winning record at Illinois and a 500 record in the Big Ten. That's where he's at right now at 13-11 and 10-10 in the Big Ten.
You say they can start selling some of those recruiting successes in the next month. Brett Bielema sat down in a tight media room and started making that pitch today, talking about DBs, safeties, if there's any that may have been, cross paths with that press conference. But yeah, it's a big year. And we didn't know, right? Like part of that is I'm still bitter about close training camp, but we didn't see things to know. But you just didn't know about the talent. We didn't know about Tommy DeVito, Jeremy. 5 months ago, we had no idea what to expect out of him.
I thought they had the talent in the first strings. Like we thought they had some NFL guys, right? Like more than they've had in recent years. The question was, did they have the depth to get through a season? And they stayed healthy mostly through the first 2 months. This last month, they've started to have some health issues that's hurt them, but they've also shot themselves in the foot, gotten some close games, didn't get some breaks, didn't execute well, which is going to happen in the Big Ten. But that was my question, and they overcame that big question because they do have depth issues. But they're able to overcome it because of the staff and because the top end talent they had: Sidney Brown, Devin Witherspoon, Chase Brown, putting it on display today.
Yeah, and we heard even last year, like this when Brett gets his guys in, like that's recruits would tell us that, hey, we're still getting our guys, and that's going to continue. But you're seeing that. I come back to what Brett said about we had to make a bowl game this year, and it almost was a lot more. But you did. You had to do this year. You did what you had to do. You missed a chance to really outkick your coverage, but you did exactly what you had to do. You have some positive things. There's guys on this roster. I know the secondary has been beaten up. Good for Tyler Strain the last couple of games. Good for Xavier Scott the last couple of games. Like you see those things. Matthew Bailey, dude can play football.
Reggie Love,
Gabe. Like you see those things. That's not saying, hey, Illinois is going to set the over under at 8.5 next year. That's outrageous. But you see on the roster that development, and then you see leaving the roster stats, figures, numbers that are going to play in the portal in terms of Tommy DeVito. If you want to go get a running back, you want to get an offensive line, all defensive linemen, like it all plays in. And that's why this was what it needed to be for Illinois. And I understand people are disappointed, but man, Illinois football is 8-4, Jeremy.
Yeah, no, it was a really, really good season. So close to being great. So close to being one of the most special seasons in Illinois history. But for Illinois recent history, This is one of the top 3 seasons of the last 2 decades. For a generation of Illinois fans, this was one of the best seasons. Now that's got to change, but I think Bielema has set that standard where, hey, these seasons shouldn't be special anymore. This should be a season that, good, not great, moving forward. Let's talk a little bit about this game that happened, Joey. 41-3. Northwestern's bad. Northwestern's really bad. I mean, you got a walk-on sophomore quarterback. Illinois dealt with this in 2017 when Jeff George had to play quarterback, and like Trenard Davis was their emergency quarterback. So understandably, this is a bad year for Northwestern, but this is 3 out of the last 4 years. They've been bad. Cole Freeman had 5 turnovers, 4 of them, I believe, or 3 of them in Illinois territory. Northwestern was able to move the ball. It's kind of a bend but don't break thing for Illinois' defense today. But what can we say about Sidney Brown putting on a show? Outscored Northwestern himself with 12 points, a fumble recovered for a touchdown, interception for a touchdown, both in the second half. Devin Witherspoon, 2 picks in the first half. Tyler Strain adds an interception late. Sidney had 2 picks today. This is the defense I expected against a bad Northwestern offense. They completely dominated. I know Northwestern was able to get some yards on the ground, things like that, but you knew they couldn't get in the end zone. Like this is an Illinois team that just sat back, knew Cole Freeman would make mistakes, and once Cole Freeman got into Illinois territory, it was a disaster for him.
It was not good. And I got to say, I got a fun Sidney Brown story. First of all, I kind of feel bad. Like anytime he does something, we collectively as a media are like, so did you give Chase a hard time about that? Which they support each other. And he's never been like, yeah, I roasted him. He's always.
Remember when Sidney Brown was an all Big Ten player before Chase Brown was even a Big Ten player?
Well, that leads me into I was the one today who asked Sidney if he gave Chase a hard time about that. He said, no, what I said was, if I get another pick, I'm running out of bounds at the 25 so you can get the rushing record and score a touchdown. I'm like, look at that. Brothers supporting brothers there. But, dude, this defense, I get the sense that, and I don't think I'm wrong on this team was frustrated. They were frustrated about the calls at Michigan. They were frustrated that they let it all slip away. Brett Bielema admitted he was frustrated. And he said, I thought I was going to come back and see a pissed off football team come back from Florida after the passing of his father-in-law. They played like that. They played like they wanted to leave nothing to chance, nothing to even doubt. Like they wanted to crush this team. And we thought that was going to be the case after the Michigan loss. Like, oh man, this is ripe for a beatdown. And it was, and the defense is the one that led the way. There was good pressure up front. And then the back end, like it was the complementary defense that we'd seen in the month of October and not so much in the month of November. But man, some dudes made some money today. Devin Witherspoon continues to make money. Sidney Brown made some money today. Brett Bielema actually said that. I was a little surprised he said that. Johnny Newton continues to rake in these opportunities. You're going to see like Illinois football is going to be pretty well represented in the 2023 NFL draft.
Oh, there's 5 guys. There's 5 guys that are going to get drafted. And Devin Witherspoon, somebody told me from Illinois, he's going to make the most money a guy's made out of this program in a long time. They think he's got a chance to be a first-round pick. Most people, most experts have him as a second-round pick, potentially third. He's going to go in the first 2 days. I got to fill out my all Big Ten ballot. Devin Witherspoon might be my Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. Jack Campbell, Iowa, deserving. I think Johnny Newton's deserving of consideration for it. And you got some other really good players. Nick Herbig at Wisconsin had a fantastic season. A lot of guys at Michigan were really good. I don't know if they stood out as much as Devin Witherspoon, Herbig, Jack Campbell. But he's going to be in that conversation. He's an All-American. He's an All-Big Ten first team. Should be unanimous. I don't know if enough guys from other places watch him, but I hope coaches vote him unanimously. He is a special talent. And he is a special competitor. I would say more than anything is he's got length, he's got speed. He's not the biggest guy, but he's just such a competitor. And kudos to Lovie Smith and Kenoto Hudson for finding him, bringing him into the program. But kudos to Ryan Walters and Aaron Henry for developing that guy because he's having – I mean, we talk about Chase Brown's season. I think Devin Witherspoon was the best player on this team this year with what he was able to do, the way he shut things down. And to have 2 interceptions today, I thought was great for him. But Sidney Brown has played his way into being a, no doubt, NFL draft pick. I think a day 3 guy. But Chase is going to get drafted. Johnny's probably going to go and get drafted. Quan Martin, I think, is certainly an NFL draft pick at this point. I got to look it up. I don't remember the last time Illinois had 5 NFL draft picks. It's been a long time, though.
It's a lot. I want to focus in on Devin Witherspoon because I thought the interceptions today were really important. In that, it sounds like elementary, but like really important in that Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year race because he doesn't have a lot of those like if you're voting, yeah, if you're voting and you're scrolling down and you see, I think he has 3 picks this season, maybe 4. That doesn't exactly like hit you in the head but if you've watched him, if you look into the PFF coverage numbers, it's ridiculous. He is shut down a whole side of the field, and like that's what matters. But that's why I thought the interceptions were big because now like 4 would get a little more attention. Maybe you dive into some numbers there if you see 4 if you're a voter. But man, like yeah, he could be a first round pick, and if they have 5 draft picks, Brett Bielema is going to walk in, and those coaching staffs can walk into any high school with an arsenal full of, hey, look at what we did, and look, we have to acknowledge those were not his guys, right? But they were in part their draft stock has been elevated because of the development of what's happening in the Smith Center, and that you can surely sell.
And they've been recruiting DBs well already. So to have 3 guys likely to get drafted after Tony Adams and Kirby Joseph under a season with these guys, Kirby wasn't a factor in the Lovie Smith era. So yeah, kudos to Lovie for recruiting some talent, man. He left some talent, but Brett Bielema getting the most out of them. Lovie just didn't leave enough depth of talent, and that's where Brett Bielema and his staff got to hit the road now and get more transfers, JUCOs to kind of fill the gaps and develop the players during bowl season.
I just want to make one more Devin Witherspoon point because the numbers, like, they're insane. Coming into this game, so we got to see what happened. They didn't complete a lot of passes, and surely not on Devin Witherspoon. Coming into this game, Devin Witherspoon allowed 20, according to Pro Football Focus, 21 receptions on 61 targets for 200 yards. That's 34% of passes completed against him for an average of 9.5 yards per reception. That's unreal. And they continue. We said it after the Purdue game, I think it was. Like, why would anyone throw at him anymore? I still don't have an answer for that. But he's not exactly like that's absolutely an insane amount of just no yards and very few receptions. Good for him, man. He made money, and we do, yeah, absolutely. Lovie Smith, Kenoto Hudson, finding him, getting him. That's big. I know you're looking up the draft picks.
I did. I found it. 2003 was the last time they've had 5 draft picks in a single year. So it'd be 20 years on the dot. That was Eugene Wilson, Brandon Lloyd, David Deal, Tony Pashos, Walter Young. Of course, those guys played a big role in a Big Ten championship in 2001. So talented group there, and it was a talented group this season. Let's talk a little bit. I also want to mention those Devin Witherspoon interceptions came at an important time because Northwestern was driving. Illinois is only up 7, only up 10. And for him to get those interceptions was a big point because the offense it wasn't a great offensive day for Illinois. They didn't have to put up yards today in the second half because the defense kind of put this game away. But I thought those were big moments to set up the offense in short fields. The offense was 4 for 4 in the red zone today, but certainly struggled to punch it in. But kudos to Reggie Love. Chase Brown gets nicked up early in this game. You're thinking, oh no, this could really hold him out. Chase comes back, but Reggie got a couple drives, Joey, and he took full advantage of it. One drive, 6 carries for 43 yards, including the 2-yard touchdown. Then he had the big 32-yard run. The most impressive run, he's done this twice or a couple times this year where just kind of moves the pocket, looks like he's going to get tackled, and all of a sudden he's running free. He did another one of those today. I think it was a 20-yard gain today. Reggie Love is interesting because, like, one of the things I'm interested in this offseason is they look to try and find a transfer running back because while you're high on Josh McCray, he wasn't healthy this year. You're high on Aiden Lawfrey, wasn't healthy this year. Jordan Anderson and Caden Fagan, really good prospects from the state. But are those guys ready to be a lead back? Reggie Love showed something today. Is it enough to definitely go with him and Josh McCray as your back-to-back guys? I don't know, but I think he did show he deserves an opportunity at that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But I also think if a running back comes in, that Brett Bielema, there's no better. If you're at the transfer portal right now, if you're going in as a running back, just objectively, Illinois has one of the top, let's just conservatively say 10 pitches of any program in the country. Hey, come in and lead the nation in rushing. And like, no one can argue and say, well, that was just a Chase Brown thing because Brett Bielema's got a laundry list of 1,000-yard rushers and all these award finalists NFL running backs. And again, we've talked about, I don't want to go too far into that, but like that's Reggie Love's, I do wonder how much I don't know that today. I think Brett Bielema is too, and this staff is too calculated to get caught up in a big day against Northwestern. But like, it's hard to say that Reggie Love didn't show something today. Like, I thought he was, and there's a lot of stuff we've seen. Like, he's bounced out of a lot of tackles. Like, it's a lot of effort runs with him, and we knew the staff liked him when they got hired. So it's interesting what that's going to be. But I still think you don't have to take one for the sake of taking one. But I think if the right one is there, you got to move.
Yeah, I think if it's a guy who's a proven star, I think you go and try and find that guy. Anything else you want to bring up from this game, Joe? I don't know if there's much to break down other than those things. Oh, got to mention good Hugh Robertson day. Good for Hugh Robertson. 3 really good punts today, and then a fake punt. The Aussies execute the fake punt extremely well. And how about an Australian rules football player just lowering the shoulder into Donnie Navarro?
It was funny. It must have been a few months ago at this point. There was something on Twitter, and it said, anyone over 25, when was the last time you sprinted at full speed? And former long snapper Ethan Tabell, who you and I know to be a pretty humorous guy, said, I don't know, Hugh, when was it? And he said 2007. I think he's got to update that a little bit now, but they brought it out. Like, I did not think they could have. Look, they didn't have to do it. They could have punted, and they still would have won this game by 30.
It was a 7-0 game at that point, too.
Yeah,
it was risky.
Did not care. Yeah, good Hugh Robertson day. The Illinois, good specialist day.
Yeah,
It was a good specialist day. There's Caleb Griffin had some field goals. There were none of those furiously maddening punts that get waved off and bounce 20 yards backwards and lose field position. This was a good specialist day from a team that just hasn't had a lot of good specialist days.
Yeah, I want to mention this because I've always found him to be really genuine dude. But Brett Bielema told some emotional stories about what these last couple weeks have been like for him. Obviously, going through so much, losing his mother and then losing his father-in-law this week, was taken away from the team for a couple days. Ryan Walters took over a lot of head coaching duties today, but he said, when my mother died and my father-in-law died, the first Big Ten coach to reach out to me was Pat Fitzgerald. So I know a lot of fans don't like him because you're competing against him and he's kind of owned you until the last couple of years. But I found him to be a genuine guy, and to do that was really, I thought, said a lot about Pat Fitzgerald. But condolences to the Bielema family. This has been such a rough couple of weeks. And he said, I didn't know if I was going to be able to coach today. Given that he coached last week, I thought he would coach today. But gosh, what he's been going through, today had to be a little bit of a respite for him just to coach football, given all the grief he's going through, and it's a continual grieving process, and it's always continuing. But man, tough couple weeks for him, and kudos, the players I know were mentioning to give him the hat today after the last couple emotional weeks with an emotional Michigan loss in the mix of it. Just a rough couple weeks, so condolences to that family.
Yeah, I thought Brett shared a really touching story. So to catch people up, he got back from his mother's funeral. His funeral was on Monday. He got back late Monday night. He had a Tuesday practice that was spirited, it sounds like. He really got after the guys in that Tuesday practice. Wednesday, he finds out his father-in-law passed. He gets on a plane and heads to Florida there's stuff you got to tend to be with family. He said they went into his father-in-law's office, and on Brett's a big yellow legal pad guy, and it said, on one of the handwritten notes, 3:30 p.m., Big Ten Network, watch Brett. And that really that was a touching story. And he said that kind of is a lot of motivation for me to come out and coach this football game. And the other part of this, and outside of the grief, is I know Brett, I think we know him well enough. I don't think he wants this about him, and he understands there's going to be questions. He's really good. He's obviously grieving, and I don't think it's on the forefront of his mind, but he's really proud of what this program has done and what these guys have done. So I think that was, I don't know how much of a factor that I just can't imagine he wanted that. And even earlier this week, he had said, as answering questions, he was professional about it. Earlier this week, he had said, can we talk about something else, please? And that was an emotional one for him. But man, what a hard 10 days for that guy. And his guys backed him up, and his coaches backed him up. He said he gave Ryan Walters a lot of those head coaching type of duties. Clearly was not an accident, as we know where Ryan Walters is he's an attractive candidate for programs looking for coaches. I think that was one of those things that matters in the coaching community, that Brett is kind of pushing his guys into those roles when the time is right for those.
Kind of a couple day tryout, right? Of Ryan, here's how you handle a game week when you're a head coach, right? So I thought that was really smart of Brett to give him that opportunity. So Brett Bielema's got a handle certainly on those things. All right, let's talk a little bit about what's next, Joey. First, there's a bowl game, and it'll be late December, early January here for Illinois. Here's the tiers of bowl games for Illinois. Michigan is obviously going to the college football playoff, whether they beat Purdue or not. Ohio State, question mark with how they got beat. They haven't their best wins against Penn State. Now they're still one of the teams in contention, but if USC ends this season with 2 more wins or whatever it is, I think they have the ability to leap them. If LSU wins the SEC championship, I think they could leap them.
Still got TCU.
Yeah, TCU is going to. I think TCU, if they obviously win the Big 12, I think they're in this thing. Ohio State's got to hope and pray everything goes well here. So if Ohio State gets knocked out of the college football playoff and Purdue loses to Michigan, Ohio State's likely going to the Rose Bowl. Penn State, New Year's Six game potentially. Purdue seems set up if they win the Big Ten, they go to the Rose Bowl. If they do not, they'll probably go to the Citrus Bowl, I would imagine. So that leaves the ReliaQuest Bowl potentially for Illinois, which is in Tampa. Or I think the Music City Bowl, which is in Nashville. Duke's Mayo Bowl is there in Charlotte. But a win today, Joey, you're getting one of the best bowls in the Big Ten. You're getting probably one of the top 5 bowl games because Wisconsin's behind you. Iowa is now behind you. Illinois should get into one of those bowls. New York, I would say, is out the window.
Yeah, it's been a kind of a process for us to narrow on these post-game podcasts. Like at first, I was like, no Detroit, and now it's probably no New York.
I think you're rooting for a Purdue loss, right? So that Ohio State goes to the Rose Bowl, Penn State slips into a New Year's Six Bowl potentially, and then Purdue takes the Citrus, and you would probably get the ReliaQuest or the Music City Bowl.
Yeah, and look, I think it's probably fair to think Purdue is going to be a significant underdog to Michigan. But yeah, those are – I think that's probably fair. Nashville, I think there's a lot of attractive parts about it being Nashville because it's 5 hours from Champaign and it's you can fly Chicago. I mean, it's a really – and you can fly Chicago anywhere, but I think Nashville would be a really – I enjoy Nashville, so maybe I'm just saying that because I think it'd be fun to spend some time there. But those two feel right. Like ReliaQuest, Music City, those feel like the ones to really monitor.
Yeah. All right, and now we got an off season, Joey, and the next couple months are going to be intense for Illinois, especially the next month. Of course, you have early signing period, December 21st through the 23rd. Yes, Jair Hill will make a decision in the next couple weeks. Malik Elzy is going to sign with the team, announce it in January. So those are the 4-star prospects you're certainly looking at. Colin Dixon got an up-close look at Northwestern after an offer today. He was visiting today, a wide receiver out of Ohio who's very good.
Previously committed to Wisconsin.
Yeah, previously committed to Wisconsin. You're still going after some of the Wisconsin commits on the defensive line. Jamal Howard, Roderick Pierce. You're going for some flips on the defensive line. But the most intriguing part to me, Joey, of the next month is who enters the NFL draft out of this team and who does Illinois go for in the transfer portal. The quarterback question probably should be answered in the next month. I'm sure they have an idea who's going to be in the portal, of who they can get. That's the biggest question over the next couple of weeks. Then the other one is Ryan Walters, right? Does Ryan Walters return to Illinois? He's not signed an extension that we know of quite yet. Colorado reportedly, from the top guys in the business, I think Pete Thamel reported, I think Bruce Feldman reported that Colorado has offered the job to Deion Sanders. That's an interesting fit, but Rick George, and probably his last chance to hire a coach at Colorado, given that this would be his 5th coach, he would go bold. I thought he'd go with a sitting head coach. I didn't know if it'd be Deion Sanders. I thought it'd be like Bronco Mendenhall or something like that. But he's going big with this one if he wants to get Deion Sanders. But Ryan Walters is in the mix there, right? And if maybe they don't get Deion, maybe they don't go to a Bronco Mendenhall, maybe Ryan Walters can end up with that job. You and I have talked about this. If Ryan Walters leaves for Colorado, kudos to him. Go on. Kevin Kane, maybe he's your next defense coordinator. Maybe Brett hires someone outside the program. I think it would be Kevin Kane, but you couldn't blame him. Illinois just doesn't want to lose him to another defensive coordinator job or to some lower level job. And I don't think Ryan would leave for a lower level job as a head coach at this point, but you don't want to lose him to somebody else because he's good. He's a Broyles Award candidate, a deserving one out of it. And if you can keep him for an extra year or two, I think that'd be huge for your program, especially when you're recruiting guys like Jair Hill and developing guys like Matthew Bailey.
Yeah, I'm with you. If he goes to Colorado, you wish him the best because you got to take that job. You have to take that job if you're Ryan Walters. But
even though it's a tough job.
Yeah, of course it's a tough job. Jobs don't come open because they're easy jobs by and large. But it would be tough to see him board a plane for some SEC program, right? Like you want to avoid that. But I think you also want to, there might be some interest in Kankakee or, you just look at that, right? Look at the defensive backs that they're recruiting and you want to know where your coordinator and Ryan Walters, calling him the lead on Jair Hill, probably an understatement. Yeah. Like this has been his project all the way through. And I'm not saying like that's absolutely going to dictate what Jair Hill does or doesn't do, but we'd be foolish to not think it's a factor in some capacity. So yeah, I don't know is that the biggest storyline?
Well, I have a story coming out in the next 24 hours, breaking down 10 things on the offseason to-do list. Keeping Ryan Walters is number one on my list. Then it is convincing some of these borderline NFL guys. Devin Witherspoon go, Johnny Newton go, right?
I did ask Devin Witherspoon today, and I said, is this your last year in Champaign? I said, I feel silly for asking, but you got to ask. I don't know if anyone's ever asked you. He goes, maybe. And then he said he didn't know if he was going to play in a bowl game. So I think that probably carries more weight. But,
and I don't want me to start this debate. Devin Witherspoon does not need to play in a bowl game at this point. That's my opinion. I know some people might disagree with that. But yes, Ryan Walters is number one on my list. Then it's about the NFL draft guys, right? You want to keep the rest of your staff, but hey, somebody gets another coordinator job, one of these defensive assistants or something like that happens. I would expect this offensive staff to stay together. I think all these guys are bought into Bielema, and the most important thing I think is Josh Whitman's committed to it, right? Like Josh Whitman has shown already a commitment to Barry Illini, and these guys have gotten raises every year. I think he's going to take care of Bielema. That's number 10 on my list, by the way. Extend Bielema. I think Bielema will get his raise and extension at some point here. But yeah, I think it's really important. It's important to keep as much continuity as possible. When you're a good program and a good team, you're going to lose Devin Witherspoon, Chase Brown, and Johnny Newton probably a year early. But if you can keep Keith Randolph for an extra year, I don't know, Julian Pearl seems like he's at 1 foot out the door, but keeping Isaiah Adams for an extra year, Seth Coleman for an extra year, Tariq Barnes, like those guys, getting them back would be monstrous for this program that we know doesn't have the best depth now. So if you can add big time players and bring them back to your program and big time coaches and bring them back to the program for an extra year, we see how important that is.
It is. And then obviously everybody's listening to this and who's going to be the quarterback. Like that's so fascinating to me because it felt like last year, like there was, and I don't want to indicate like I don't think there's going to be urgency this year. And I know obviously they liked what they saw in Tommy or their interactions with him. I don't think they wanted to waste time on getting him. But I also didn't think that this program where it was a year ago had time to be picky.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't.
If you got a Power 5 guy, which Tommy DeVito was, you needed to get him and you needed somebody to get in there right away because nobody else was healthy. To be honest with you, I don't know if Art Sikowski, is he coming back? I don't know. So, and even if he is, he's probably your backup, right? They need to get somebody in here in January and he needs to be good. The good thing is you have a good sell with Tommy DeVito's season.
The sell is 100,000 times different than it was a year ago. And that's what I wonder. Like, you don't want to wait forever. You certainly don't want to wait forever, but can you get into that like Christmas time? You know what I mean? Like how far into this can you get? Cause you do want somebody here in January. So like the month of December is bringing a quarterback. Santa's bringing a quarterback.
It's the next 3-4 weeks.
Yeah.
We should know if Illinois is bringing in a quarterback by January, because that's got to happen. They got to get through the admissions process. Got to go through all those things. So it is December 5th is when this transfer portal opens in the FBS, and it is going to be insane. It is going to be insane. And somebody asked, like, who do you think could transfer out? I don't know. You could have surprises here, right?
We just watched a surprise play for Northwestern. Donnie DeVar, I don't think anyone would have had him on the transfer out list.
Yeah, so those things happen. You just hope it's not one of your best players. Like there will be players that transfer out of Illinois because they see the writing on the wall that playing time is not there. They want an opportunity in their last year or two.
They're not guaranteed more years, that COVID years, like that's going to change things. There's roster churn. So I didn't mean to cut you off. There's roster churns. That's going to happen. How many surprises? I don't know. Deuce Spann was a surprise to me too, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I do feel I'm with you. I think the next 3 to 4 weeks are going to tell us about our quarterback. I don't think the staff has. I'm not reporting this, but I don't think the staff has any interest in waiting until August for a quarterback to show up.
No,
I
mean
think
you can do that. It's been done. I mean, people coming in May, June, right? Brandon Peters came in May and June. Same thing with AJ Bush. Like it can happen. You get the best guy. You still got to get the best guy. But I do think it's so valuable. You're seeing it with Tommy DeVito and just his decision making in this offense. Besides his pick today, which was the game was out of hand. Like his decision making, I think, was part of being in spring ball. 6 extra months with Barry Loney Jr. Being able to know this offense inside and out. I think that's really important. I don't know who that guy is. I know you guys want me to throw names out there. We'll find out who's in the portal a week from Monday.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I think we'd be wasting more time than not trying to guess names or speculate names. It's not entirely fair on either front, right? It's not fair to speculate who's going to transfer out of the program either.
Yeah, so transfer needs. I broke this down in a story earlier in the week. Quarterback is number one. I think offensive line and defensive line are 2A and 2B, right? Like I think that is the most important thing is replenishing in the trenches because Johnny Newton is likely gone. I would imagine. Now, he's got to make his decision. He's got to go through this process, get feedback. I haven't seen him on these prospect lists, but boy, he should be based on what we've seen. So maybe I'm assuming he's leaving and maybe he won't, but I know Illinois is preparing like they're going to have to get a defensive lineman transfer. You hope Keith Randolph comes back along with Seth Coleman and Gabe Ackus and T-Rod Edwards. I think has shown some flashes this year. I think your front could be really good if you had one more disruptor up front. Offensive line, Julian Pearl looks like he's 1 foot out the door. Alex Palczewski, Alex Pilstrom, solid, serviceable center this year. Kendall Smith, solid, serviceable safety this year. Those guys stepping up was nice. So go with your side.
Yeah, I just think like Alex Pilstrom, it wasn't a perfect season, right? It wasn't an all Big Ten season. It wasn't any of that. It was exactly what Illinois needed. He was exactly to a T what Illinois needed him to be when they, frankly, took a gamble on moving him from whichever position you could say he called home over the last 2 years on the offensive line. Guard, we'll say guard, that's largely what it was, to center. He's never played center. He's a freaking tight end 4 years ago. And he gave you that perfect bridge that you needed to either transfer of your choice or maybe it's Josh Kreutz, maybe it's someone else on the roster who can slide in there. Maybe it's a Joey Okla. We don't know. But he gave you exactly what you needed at that spot. And you can say the exact same thing for Kendall Smith. You made the observation today, 100% right. Since Indiana, things don't go over Kendall Smith's head.
Both in the pass and run game.
Yeah, and that's huge. And now you look at who could be behind it. Is it Keontae Curry? Is it, what is it transfer? Is it Jair Hill? Like you had a bridge like that. This season was a lot of ways about progress, but a lot of ways about bridges and pitches. And they've got exactly what they needed. Tommy DeVito, great pitch. The defensive line, great pitch. Center, free safety, really even to a degree, cornerback too.
Yeah.
Good bridges, good pitches like that. That's the kind of an underlying thing here that matters.
Yeah. I think it's important to replenish the trenches here because Julian Pearl, Alex Pilstrom, Alex Palczewski, all likely on their way out. Isaiah Adams sounds like he's going to be back. Going to be very interesting to see what position he can play because I think Illinois thinks he can play every position on this offensive line, including center. So that'll be interesting to see. They want to add another tackle. Does seem like some young guys are starting to step up. I'm interested to see if Hunter Whitenack can step up. I know the staff has been really happy with Josh Geske potentially playing tackle next season. So you got some of that development, but to get Desmond Schuster in this program, another JUCO offensive lineman would be really, really important. And then the defensive back, like Matthew Bailey's going to replace Sidney Brown, right? We know that for sure.
Have you ever been more sure about anything?
Well, he's like a bigger, longer version of Sidney Brown, at least the way he talks, and certainly in the glimpses we've seen of him play. Then Taz Nicholson is back as one of your corners you feel solid about. Xavier Scott, the next guy. Quan Martin's a big piece to replace. Who's at free safety? I think they want to add another corner there, Joey. So we'll see how that goes. We know they've offered a tight end. I would imagine Luke Ford goes pro. Saw somebody mention that. I think he'll move on. And then you got some other positions. Wide receiver, somebody mentioned in our chat here. I don't know. I think they'd be willing to take the right one, but everyone's back at that position. Pat Bryant, Brian Hightower should be back. Isaiah Williams should be back. Casey Washington's got another year of eligibility. And then you got a freshman class you feel good about. You're going after Malik Elzy. You're going after Colin Dixon. So if it's a great one, sure. I think I'd take it. You need some speed. You need to be able to stretch the field a little bit more. But I don't know if that's like the priority position. We've mentioned running back. I think those are the main ones, right? But DB, boy, you're replacing 4 starters and 3 pros for sure.
Yeah, and they got talent in the program they like. Are they willing to rely on freshmen or redshirt freshmen, maybe a true freshman, maybe a redshirt sophomore? I don't know, but the pitches are clear, or the position of needs are clear. Are they more than they were a year ago? I don't know. I mean, if they are, it's because you had guys go pro, which it kind of pays forward down the line a little bit. So let's break it down. A year ago, they needed a quarterback. They needed an offensive lineman, and they got 2. We thought they needed a defensive back. And
I thought they needed a starting corner.
Yeah.
Ends up they got Terrell Jennings, but Taz Nicholson was really good this year.
Yeah. Is that wide receiver? Right, wide receiver was probably 2 on the list a year ago at this point. I know someone asked. We'll get to that in a second. So I don't know, man. Like it might be more, but if it's more, it's for a good reason.
Yeah. And you got a better pitch for all these positions. I would include wide receiver because you showed that you can actually pass the ball this year. Ethan, any chance Tommy gets an extra year? Would love to see him back. 2 questions about that. 1, does Tommy want to come back? 2, can he come back? Illinois will try. They will go for the waiver. The expectation is he will not qualify for that. Good season. The bar at Illinois has changed. Definitely going in the right direction. Yeah, we talked about all that to start this off. I think we have a great chance of getting the ReliaQuest Bowl in Tampa. Fett says, I think that is a good chance. The more I look at this list, because Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Purdue are in front of you. Again, I think you're rooting for Purdue to lose so they don't go to the Rose Bowl, so Ohio State can go there. Penn State to get in a New Year's Six Bowl. And then I think you would be in line for the ReliaQuest would make the most sense in Tampa on January 2nd, which isn't the worst place to be on January 2nd. Who is going to be quarterback for Illinois next year? It's going to be a transfer. Yeah. It is certainly going to be a transfer. Illinois wants to win next year. So anyone that is rooting for Kirkland Michaud, this guy, Donovan Larry, or Cal Swanson, you saw how that works. You see how playing young guys who aren't the highest of pedigree guys, let's be honest, right? Like you see how that works out most of the time. They have to get a transfer quarterback because they want to win next year. They don't want a development year. They want to win. So they're going to go get a transfer quarterback.
I say Josh McCray, just to address it, not Josh McCray needs to redshirt. He is.
Yeah, he's got it.
He's got it. Like he can play in the bowl game and still get it. Just I know that's been a pressing question. This is it. He didn't travel. He's going to redshirt.
Yeah. So he's played 3 games this year. Even if he plays in the bowl game, he's got the red shirt because he can play up to 4 games. TD3 is an amazing quarterback. One I'll remember. He still has 1 more game. Absolutely. This is the best quarterback season we've seen since Nathan Schilas with Bill Cubit in 2013. Put up big numbers. The defense wasn't very good that year. But you got as much out of him, or more out of him than I think you would have thought. What did he throw? 15 touchdowns to 4 interceptions this year. Just an amazing completion rate, amazing efficiency. Was exactly what they needed at that position.
Yeah, we said if he could be 2019 Brandon Peters, that'd be a win. I think he was better than that.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think I know he was better than that. Like that was, and I harped on it ad nauseum, but it's what you needed. You needed 1 for the on the field and 2 to go into transfer portal quarterbacks' homes and say, this is what we did with Tommy DeVito after a year.
Fett said, does Lenny redo his first and goal playbook? I think he needs the second and short. Second and short has been the big issue. Running that sprint to the sideline with Chase Brown. The linebackers are just keying on him. And then you saw later in the game, Joey, you have the rollout. You play action, fake that play. You play action, fake that play. You roll out Tommy DeVito, tight end wide open on the backside. Look forward, first down. That's what I need to see. Barry, I don't mind him when he runs on first down inside the goal line. You're a running team. Your offensive line hasn't been very good inside the 5. It's hard in that area. It's a short field. There's not much room. but just getting, play action with DeVito rolling out, having an option because they're not covering the tight ends. The linebackers are crashing on the run game as they should. Those things are open all season. So those are the things that I need to see. Like first down, run it, don't mind it. Get a yard, get two, get a little closer to the field. But getting Tommy DeVito on the run, because one, he can run, or there's going to be a wide open tight end or wide receiver there. And he can make plays. Like Tommy DeVito, I trust enough in those situations to make the right play.
Yeah, I also think we have to acknowledge what does the playbook look like when you don't have a Doak Walker semifinalist behind Tommy DeVito, right? Like, let's say he comes out and throws 2 out of 3 times in a 4-down sequence. The question would fairly be, why don't you give it to Chase Brown, right? Like, and I think Barry Lunny's, those play calls have left a lot to be desired. I'm not trying to say they haven't at times, but you got Chase Brown, right? Like you got Chase Brown. You pride yourself on being an offensive team that can run the ball, a physical team. Like I get it. Now I think you can adjust to that, but come on. I mean, like the logic makes some sense in some degree.
Yeah, and for anyone that thinks Barry only runs on first down, I was charting it through the first half. It was evenly split. Like they came out of the game with 3 straight passes, right? And a couple on first down. Is Prince Green still on the team? Yes, he's still on the team. I don't think did he travel today? I'm not sure about that. Sean asked, when does Malik Elzy make a decision? He will sign, he says, with a team in December, but not announce until January in the All-American Bowl, which is what happens when you get big-time prospects. They like to announce at these bowl games that they participate in, and if he's wearing an Illinois hat, I don't think he'll complain about that. I do think Illinois is in a good position for him right now.
Yeah, maybe a lot, but it sure as heck beats if you follow recruiting, beating out a bunch of Group of 5 programs.
Sean also asked, when does Leary play quarterback for Illinois? A couple of years, right? I mean, that's usually what happens. I mean, if an injury happens next year, I mean, Larry's certainly moving up the depth chart. He might be the backup. He's going to get really important reps of development during this bowl prep, which is going to start this week. The development guys, whether it's Micho, Leary, are going to get plenty of reps. He's going to be one of the top backups next year. So if there's an injury at quarterback to whoever transfer they get in here, certainly he'll be in line there. So we'll get to see what happens. And quarterback depth has to improve. Right? We don't talk enough about that position, Joey, in needing depth. It's certainly a big step down the last couple from DeVito to Art Sikowski this year, but DeVito stayed healthy through most of the year, thankfully, because we see look what happens with Iowa, even when Spencer Petras goes out of the game. Padilla wasn't much better, or Northwestern. Their quarterbacks weren't good anyway, but to have to play a sophomore walk-on is basically your third option. Yikes.
Yeah, quarterback depth is a real thing because I know Art Sikowski was maybe frustrating at times for fans, but you might be in a situation like you're one play away from being in a situation next year where you say, if Art Sikowski elects to move on, and you say, oh man, you really miss Art Sikowski. Backup quarterback is a hard job, and it's hard to have a good one. And I think Art Sikowski was a fine backup quarterback for Illinois. You probably don't win Iowa if you throw out Ryan Johnson. It's not a knock on Ryan Johnson, but Art's just been in those fires.
St. Dominic, I remember when Joe Tiller tried out a freshman quarterback no one ever heard of and wasn't on anyone's list, a 3-star named Drew Brees. You're throwing out a Hall of Fame quarterback. Like, sure, could that happen?
There's always exceptions to rules, right? Like, I don't say it's a rule, but like
you and I cover this team. We talked to the coaches. They're not going to put the ball in Donovan Leary's hands to be the starter next year because they don't think he'll be ready. Now, maybe he takes a big leap. Maybe that happens. But that's not how they're planning on it. Like, I know you want to envision this guy to be this guy. I don't think it's fair on Donovan Leary to think that quite yet. He's barely gotten any practice reps, guys. Like he took mostly scout team reps. He's barely practiced in this offense. And that's why, again, development, spring, going to be really important.
Yeah. I mean, ask Art Sikowski if he would sign up to go out there before you're ready. And look, Illinois right now and Rutgers then are in 2 totally different stratospheres as far as talent, but it can be detrimental too to just throw out a quarterback when they're not ready.
Is Chase Brown a first or second round pick in the NFL? No. Sean asked. I've seen some people have him 3rd round, 3rd or 4th. I think that's about right. Like you watch a guy like Bijan Robinson, that's 1st rounder. Jahmyr Gibbs, a 1st rounder. Chase isn't the biggest guy, but yeah, I think he'll be drafted in the middle rounds. When can Isaiah Williams go pro? He can go now if he wants. I don't think he will. I don't think he's ready for that. I think BB is going to win some of these late recruiting battles. Sure. I think he will. I think they got a lot to sell. Ready for transfer names for going out or in? No, I'm not going to speculate until those guys go in the portal or out of the portal. I mean, if you guys want to speculate guys going out of the portal, look at the third string, right? And see who's not getting reps. Donovan Leary's brother is an NFL quarterback. Donovan and Devin are different people, and I don't think Devin is an NFL quarterback quite yet. How does Mounus look? Haven't seen practice, so couldn't tell you, but he's probably a couple years away. There are 7 quarterbacks on the roster right now. Do you think we can work on the guys we have now and see what happens? That is not the plan. That is not. They are going to add.
Sure.
They are going to add. There's a couple walk-on guys. Joey's getting frustrated because you have to add more talent. You have to add somebody with experience. You can dream of one of these guys being great right away. That's not probably realistic. If they felt like somebody was ready to be Sky Clark at quarterback for them, right, they would go with that guy, and he'd be the second string guy. This year, you had number 1, Tommy DeVito, 2, Art Sikowski, 3, Ryan Johnson, a walk-on senior, 4, Donovan Leary. So
3 of those are scholarship quarterbacks. 1 is expected back. All this is I'm trying to get frustrated, but like all this is a fun conversation on November 26th. Well, you're going to be furious if it's October 1st. You're trying to win games. And you think, wow, but I'm sure glad we get. Time matters. Development matters. This is a development program. I get it. They're all fun. Like quarterback recruiting drives everything, right? Everybody focuses on it.
And you don't have a CJ Stroud in the program, right? You don't have a 5-star sitting there. It's not like you have Justin Fields as a redshirt freshman ready to take this. Like it's the pedigree is not there. Like, so you can wish upon a star and hope one of these guys is next great thing. And maybe they will be in a couple of years, but I can tell you Illinois is not planning on that. They're not planning on one of these redshirt freshmen going into the year being their starter. They're going to go in the portal and try and find another guy like Tommy DeVito and maybe find a guy with multiple years of eligibility.
Brett Bielema didn't say we wanted to make a bowl game this year just to turn around and play redshirt freshman quarterback next year.
Yeah. Last one, is Sidney Brown going to be in the NFL next year? Yes. He will be an NFL draft pick. I think he leads. Does he lead the NCAA now in interceptions with 6? I didn't think Sidney would be in the mix for that. But what a season for Sidney Brown. He'll probably be on my all Big Ten first team as well. So, yeah, I think that'll do. I think we've gotten enough quarterback questions.
You may not ever know. You do right now. Like these guys practice.
Yeah, they see practice.
Oh my good God. I'm not trying. Like, come on, man.
I get it. You want your quarterback that is in your program now to be great. Illinois needs to be better with quarterback recruiting, right? And that's why Barry Lunny was brought in to improve that. Tommy DeVito showed what they can be with his system, with a quarterback. And now you sell that to the next guy. You sell it to the next prep guy. And now he has a full year of recruiting 2024s where he can go maybe get a better prospect in Illinois in getting a quarterback, because quarterback recruiting has not been good for Illinois the last several years. That's nothing on Donovan Leary. That's nothing on Kirkland Michaud or Cal Swan. Like maybe those guys will end up being good, but they're going to try to continue to recruit over and add competition at that position because it's the most important position.
Yeah, this isn't saying like those guys are not good quarterbacks. That's I think the point we're trying to make is like most programs, right? Like there's very few. In each recruiting class, there's maybe like 4 quarterbacks who could step in and be Power 5 starters on contending teams. Those quarterbacks aren't coming to Illinois. Development, Barry Lunny's pitch to Cal Swanson, to Donovan Leary is about development. And there's just a reality.
I was told when they got Cal Swanson, ask me in 3 years.
That's not a knock on Cal Swanson. That's just the reality of the fact that you don't. If you ask, wouldn't it be fun to do like a blind poll of like Power 5 head coaches? Like, would you start do you prefer to start a freshman or redshirt freshman quarterback? And I'm sure the overwhelming, outside of the heavy hitters who get this, there's like 10 schools who get these quarterbacks every year anyway. The overwhelming answer would be, please don't call me back. Like, no, like you just don't. You don't want to do that. It's really hard. There are anomalies. There are players who take these huge step forwards. Maybe Jeremy, maybe this won't age very well. And Donovan Leary, I just don't think that's a realistic expectation that you and I should set on November 26th, or that's frankly that we are hearing.
Yeah. We're not trying to say those guys won't be good
Right.
with time. What we're saying is Illinois is not counting on them to be the starter.
And it's not fair to them to count on that.
No. All right, that'll do it for us. We'll have plenty of off-season content coming at Illini Inquirer. It is going to be a very busy time, despite no game next week, with Purdue against Michigan in the Big Ten championship game. Who'd have thunk it? But Illinois gearing up for one of their best bowl games, obviously, since the Rose Bowl. And a nice, good, big step forward for Illinois football in 2022. Brett Bielema can coach. Brett Bielema is a really good CEO. And we've been around this program, we're close to this program, talked to people in this program. It is as organized as I've ever seen. Somebody said Lovie Smith isn't a bad coach. Well, I think Lovie Smith has great eye for talent. You got to respect his football IQ. But when it came to being a CEO of a college football program, it is night and day from Brett Bielema and Lovie Smith. Just his handprints are over every part of the program. Josh Whitman has flooded money with resources, hiring, getting a bigger recruiting staff, getting better, assistant coaches. Brett Bielema's got great hirer so far of his assistant coaches. That's my biggest takeaway from year 2 here is Brett Bielema's a heck of a coach, and it is the best Illinois coach in probably 3 decades.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if you need to know what, without a game next weekend, Sunday you'll know where they're going in a bowl game. A week from tomorrow, you'll know what the bowl game destination is. Obviously, there's going to be some roster speculation. I don't know if we're going to see any news between now and then, but that's kind of the next milestone is Sunday. After your basketball fix on Tuesday against Syracuse, Sunday is bowl destination. We'll have coverage from that off, out the window. We have a ton of it.
Yeah, Sunday bowl game, Monday transfer portal opens. 2.5 weeks after that, you have early signing day, December 21st through the 23rd. Plenty of stuff at IlliniInquirer.com. Right now, 75% off a VIP membership at Illini Inquirer through Monday. So Cyber Monday is your last chance to take advantage of that deal. That's less than 7 cents a day, and we're going to have a lot of VIP content coming up. So appreciate you guys who have signed up, everyone who's pushing that out to their friends and family. We appreciate you guys doing that and for supporting us to allow us to cover this program the way we think it should be covered for such a fantastic fan base. Go ahead.
Yeah, can we just say these have been fun?
Yeah.
I know tonight's been not a lot of sleep this week, but these have been a lot of fun. It helps us work through a lot of thoughts, and hearing and interacting with you guys has been a lot of fun. Stray commenters like our friend Trevor are not always appreciated.
I appreciate being labeled worth 7 cents a day. That's
Trevor.
Pretty fun.
You're too kind, Trevor.
Appreciate you guys. Give us a follow wherever you get your podcast. Give us a rating or review. We appreciate that. Hit the like button on this YouTube video if you're watching this thing live or watching it back later. And hit the subscription button. Hit that notifications bell. Help us out on YouTube. It's been fun doing this all year, and we'll continue to do it for basketball outside of the Lindenwood game. I wanted to get home and get some sleep, and Sky Clark was good. That was my takeaway.
Sky Clark, RJ Melendez, you caught up on the Miss Lindenwood podcast. Now.
There you go. That's all I had to say about that. Everybody have a great night. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Illini Inquirer podcast.